is being recorded.
All right, so I'm going to fly through the agenda. We've got 4 items. I think for some of them, we'll actually have folks share their screen and give a very quick update of some of the work that's happening. Feel free to as well, Jim. I know I didn't suggest that to you, so I don't want to put you on the spot either. But I'll stop sharing my screen for a little bit here, so as we go through these points, people can feel free to share theirs. So the very first agenda topic we have is talking about all the wonderful work that Jim has been doing to auto-generate some of the Docker files for tests. So I'll stop talking now, Jim, and hand it over to you.
Okay, I don't mind. I can share my screen.
Great.
So I've been working on, like Shelly said, we worked on the generation of Docker files for the external tests that the Adopt team runs. Currently, I got pretty much a large portion of them done. I modeled it off of Dino's Adopt Docker repo, a model after his scripts. So now we have kind of a Docker file functions, common functions, build images, which is primarily what you'll probably be interacting with, where you can basically pass in. Can you guys see this okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can pass in a test, a version, the VM, JVM, OS, package you want to do, and a build. So builds are like slim versus full, packages, I forget what they're called. I'm still pretty new to the whole Java world, but here are basically all the different parameters you can basically pass in. So I can give a little demo.
Yeah.
I was working on adding support. Right now, I'm missing, I think, 3 tests. The Quarks, or I forget how you say it, but Quarks.
Quarkus. Yeah.
Quarkus, yes. System test and function test. I'm about to do system test and function test. I'm just missing the download generation for Ant contribute. I didn't. None of the other tests required that, at least to my knowledge. So, but anyways,
yeah, the special thing about functional and system are actually tests we run on. They're the giant test suites we run on bare metal, and so they actually. That's why we're calling that get and getting the test kit gen framework in place. And that, yeah, Ant contrib is those are the only tests in the external folder that require them, but it definitely is, you'll definitely not run without it. So.
Okay, so if I switch this to Derby, which is a known working one, this basically is saying, hey, build Derby, build it for Java 11 with the OpenJ9, build it for Debian, have a JDK. You also have the option for Java runtime environment. And then full versus a slim. This is going back to what Dino produces for the Adopt organization. I guess slim images have a little less of the Java packages or something. I'm not really sure what they do, but you have the option to do them. Keep that off. It'll write out the Derby file to the file system. And now it's going through the build of the Derby as we speak. You can see the Docker file. Sorry, it's a little messy. I've been poking around everything.
It's all good. I really actually love that you mirrored the same folder system as is used in the build. I think it'll be easier for people to understand it.
Yeah, so this is the file that just got generated. It's pretty much standard of what is already in the standard Docker file, just more concise, more organized. You have the options to pass in Ant versions. You have the options to configure Derby if you wanted, and then you can basically do all the configuration of like, okay, hey, I want this version of Java or this version of packages. We go back here. Now we have the Derby image built, and I can just plop it right here and run it. It'll go through. I'm not done. I should run all of
it. Yeah, of course.
Wow.
No, this is great, and thanks for also listing in that PR, remaining tasks. I think this is going to be very straightforward to integrate into how we already launch tests. And you and I are going to meet on Monday already to do it, but I'm actually just tempted to throw it in just while I'm traveling through the airports getting back to Canada, because it'll be very easy. Do you happen to know how long it takes for the build all script to run? If I want
No,
Okay.
I don't really know. I started testing generation of it, but then I stopped because it was taking
No
a little
problem.
bit and also eating through my Mac pretty badly.
Yeah.
So
Well, so the build all, that's only, that script is to generate the Docker files, right? It's not
yeah,
actually going to try to run everything. So I think the way I could see we could integrate this is as a very starting point is in the build.xml file of external tests, we can actually call the build all, so we have all the Docker files created. And then for each individual test, just call the command in the playlist.
you could do that, or you could just have you can call
Individually generate.
build image, whatever you want. I know
Yeah.
Dino.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I know Dino has all the Docker files like generated and pushed to the repository. That might
Right.
clutter you guys' repo a lot. And especially since we're not like pushing them up to some sort of like Docker hub. I don't really see a use case for having them all generated.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys want it. It's up to you guys, really.
I don't think so. I'd rather, personally, as long as it's not consuming a whole bunch of time, I'd rather do it fresh each time.
Yeah, it's quick. I mean, it's just a bunch of I/O to the file system, just running Docker files.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, it's wonderful. So I think we can actually connect that. The other thing I should note is I had a discussion with a couple of people today, and reminded people that I really, really want the Docker build to be triggered off the main build pipelines.
Yes. Yeah.
And folks were in agreement. I didn't really realize until today either that Dinakar had been away from work because of an injury. So he's kind of only been dotting back, but he's back full time now. So we'll be able to progress this forward faster than the last few weeks. So if you and I we'll put your stuff into our framework, it can still be triggered off the nightlies, even though it won't match up to we'll be behind a day or two. We won't be in sync necessarily. We'll still be pulling down the images that last got pushed, but we won't be triggered by the Docker build.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think that's, we'll get there and we'll get to the next point.
Yeah, there's a couple other like small improvements that I've been opening issues onto Dino's not Dino's, but the Adopt Docker repository, like the JDK thing we talked about, how the names, it has JRE for the nightly images, but then it just assumes that the default image is going to be JDK.
And I saw someone else was also in favor of that. I think it makes sense just to switch it. So with
there's all these little improvements.
Yeah.
There's all these little improvements that it will make the script a lot better. So
yeah, for sure. And I did mention today as well that to people I was talking to. I expect now that we're turning this stuff on, we'll flesh out a few more things so that they should expect some additional Docker issues to be raised over the next little while. That's what we want. Cool. Sweet. Awesome. Thanks. I'll move along. Up next, Sophia, are you on?
Yeah.
Are you happy to share your screen or give us an update anyway of what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. I share content.
And I should say, I create the issue for the meeting minutes at least a few days ahead and try to give people a Slack message. If I missed activities, I don't always know what everyone's working on. It's open to anyone to suggest stuff or add a comment, and I'll I'll throw it into the agenda. So this is meant to be an open call where people can feel like they can, come and share or ask questions or update the agenda as they see fit. All right.
Yeah, so I just I got some idea about the GitHub Action. So the idea is actually mentioned. So currently we have the regular build in the CI AdoptOpenJDK, which can regularly running like weekly or daily running all kinds of the tests against our JDK. So Git Action actually can provide, we can trigger the build inside your code, so which all the things that can be in the same repo. So I just want to show you what I have done to make a concept improvement. Also, it should be I think that will be our next step. But going forward, we can enable some Git action to run against the pull request. So the thing has not been merged. So everything is in my personal repo. So if we go to, this is my personal repo, and we can go to action. The general idea is you can create a new workflow, and you can use existing actions, or you can set up your own. So what I did, I just want to demo some example. So this one is an example about the label. So we can label the pull request, which means that this can be our next step to enable the build about the change-based test. So this is my action, and it's quite simple. So run the action label according to the change set. So then you can go here. And you can see this is my pull request, and which can be use the GitHub action and edit the label. Another one is where I have an example of running the JDK test. This one. So this action actually we set up using the Git action, set up the environment we needed, and then we get expected JDK, which is this actually is action from the GitHub Action marketplace, which means it's open source. You can directly use it. This one is actually I grabbed the JDK 8 from Adopt, then get our test framework. Then we can run the test, the build test. And the simple test is the JDK math. You can see, yeah, so quite similar to our regular grander or daily or weekly Jenkins build in Adopt. And also, so from here, I think the idea is we can enable the Git action based on our pull request and directly run the test in the GitHub, which is more straightforward and could combine with our, it should also combine with our existing Jenkins build. Or Derek has set some Azure pipeline build. Also, we can use the Git action. We can trigger the existing Azure pipeline. So this is my example. You need to connect Azure And here it says the pipeline, the pipeline can be triggered and in the alerts developer field.
Hey, Sophia, just a quick question. GitHub Actions are really cool. I definitely want something I want tested out internally and stuff. Is it free? Like, it seems like you're building
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah?
free.
Yeah, so everyone in the world can, you can run up to 20 concurrent runners at a time. You can pay for extra if you want, but the free stuff means up to 20 concurrent. I think there's an enterprise that gives you 180 runners at a time.
Okay.
There's
Yeah,
a whole bunch of levels, yeah.
so I haven't been able to test. I imagine you could probably test Windows on here, right? That's one of the big things I haven't.
Yeah, they have X Linux, Mac, and Windows, and then Docker containers. So actually, if we'd gotten faster on this idea, you should be able to run your external tests. We should be able to fire them up in GitHub Actions.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
I think that's. I'll talk after Sophia's done here, but I'll show a little diagram of where I think we're going here.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much what I have done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really, thank you for leading us into this. I know I kind of threw it on you as a bit of a surprise. I also want to mention, so I'm going to share just a quick picture as well, because it's something that when GitHub Actions became available kind of last year, I wanted to do, and then we didn't have time. And then it got triggered again recently that I really wanted to try to get something in place. And this is kind of an awful way to view this, but in our AdoptOpenJDK story, I kind of think of our test automation as having 3 layers. Everyone is probably on this call is aware of the test kit gen layer, where that's actually the only required layer for getting tests running, because if you have that, you can run tests locally on your laptop. In the middle, I'll call it the CI layer. We are heavily dependent and like using Jenkins, but at the same time, there's a lot of companies at Adopt and working with a lot of people, and we get a lot of sponsors at Adopt who, are willing to give us free machines as long as we can trigger testing on them. So Azure DevOps is one of those, and what Sophia showed was that the AdoptOpenJDK public Azure DevOps location. So having that now means that we kind of want the ability to have a hybrid build farm, being able to send testing through Jenkins or to Asdo or Tecton or whatever layer you have in the middle. And because that layer could be switched out or changed or be a couple of different things, the way we've been thinking about the design of our automation is have minimal functionality in that layer. So we're not going to rely on the Jenkins GUI to be able to go and triage necessarily. We want a standard GUI, and that's where the test result summary service is the top layer. That thing can query multiple Jenkins servers and into Azure DevOps or whatever else you want to run tests on. So that will give us a common view of the world up at that top layer. And that's also where we can add some extra features and eventually some analytics and deep learning services and that kind of stuff. And it's designed in a modular way so that if anyone was running any kind of test, they could go monitor it in any one of those CI systems. So it's not specific to Java necessarily. So just wanted to quickly mention that to people. And also that because you had given me the first cut, it's very easy for anyone to throw an action. So to throw a workflow into their GitHub .github folder and trigger actions to happen. Right now, I do want to call out a detail here. So Sophia mentioned that someone in the community kindly created an action and pushed it to the marketplace that's called Get JDK. And he's actually donating that to AdoptOpenJDK, so that will shortly be in an AdoptOpenJDK repo. And it's fairly straightforward to kind of use actions from the marketplace. I do want to say that if I come back and look at a workflow file, this would be the file that sits in your .github/workflows directory. To use an action, I'm just using this as an educational format now, it just doesn't really relate to specifics what we do, but this is all you need to do to use that Get JDK action. It's written and it takes 2 parameters. And in fact, one of the things Sophia showed was this is what's required to be able to run AdoptOpenJDK tests. We're going to create an action much like this one called Run Aqua. So all of this here will it will actually collapse into something like this. So it'll look like Run Aqua, and then it'll point to the repo that the action lives in, and then you can pass in versions and build list and targets. So in Jim's case, the build list would be externals, and if you wanted to even not build all the external folders, you could go external/Derby and then target the name of the Derby test or extended, and that would kick off the Derby tests as a GitHub action in one of those runners. So that's kind of a look at what we want to open up that functionality to help support Java developers and JVM developers so that they can have a place where they can run stuff even before it goes to full-on Jenkins-based pull request testing that happens in their workflows at the moment. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing there. And we're on to the next topic. I think, Lan, you might be next.
Hi. Okay, let me just share my screen. But so I'm going to talk about some of the work that I have done in TRSS. So last meeting, we're talking about that we're going to create a convenience button for the people that charging. So it's in the it's merged in the repo already. So unfortunately, we lose the machine in Adopt at this point, so you won't be able to access the server. I'm running this locally, but once the server is back up, you should be once we update the code, then you should be able to have this feature. So
we'll throw a note in the Slack channel when it's back up as well, so people know. Yep.
So basically, you will see this little Git icon, and it will actually create a new issue at Adopt for you. Well, you have to click submit, but basically, the idea is we will gather all the required information for you so that you don't need to type them. For example, test name, test duration, machine that's run on the machine, the test runs on, the TRSS link, the build info, link to the Jenkins, link to the build. So the idea is that those basic information user doesn't need to gather, and then we can create a format or template so that all the information are captured. This is the first version, so we're still working on it. We're gonna have, for example, the Java version. Once we have, it's gonna come soon. So we're gonna capture the Java version part. Maybe other information based on the feedback that we can.
And I think a rerun link or got like a quick link to rerun it
Great.
as well, possibly. Yeah.
Right. Another thing is, since it's all parameters, so let's say if this is not issue that you should open in adopt OpenJDK test, then you can change it. Say this is Eclipse OpenJ9, you can change the domain, and then it will actually create. So it's just, well, all the information will remain. It just, the whole thing changed to OpenJ9. So you can add this information or add extra information and then click on submit new issues. So hopefully this will help the build monitor people or triage people so that they can create issues more easily.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so that's the thing that's already in the repo. Another thing I want to show is the work in progress that's still in my local branch. We're trying to introduce the dashboard for the test result. So the idea is we're going to have giving you, in addition to the grid, we're actually going to give you additional information like the percentage, which is the pass divide executed. That's the percentage, and build the result. Additional information, which machine runs on, the duration of the build, who launched the build, and some of charts that the test numbers basically for the test numbers. So I have give me some feedbacks if you want to see something. Basically, I have overall summary here on the left. It shows all executed tests. I can easily switch to pass test or some total or something like that. Just for now, I chose to choose the executed test. So as you can see, we're having external OpenJDK perf and system. You can easily pick and choose if you don't want to see them or whatever, and then it shows you the number. If you click on the slice, it actually drill down to a lower level, which shows you, hey, this one we're running sanity and extended. So you can always back. On the right side, we're showing you the failed test. So it gives you a separate. So as you can see, we're having 83 system tests that failed and 17 OpenJDK tests. Again, same idea. Click on it, it will drill down. So the 17 is all open sanity tests, as you can see here. Just give you some graphs. Hopefully that will help people to have a better understanding when there's a release to see the health of the build. I'm not a UI designer per se, so if you have any suggestions about color.
Yeah. Well, I think we start with phase one and don't invite too many feature requests. I will say to everyone, I know there's a lot of the triage team, the build monitoring and build pipeline team on the call. That again, right now that we're focused on test targets, but we know that different people have also asked, well, if there is a more granular count. So for example, if the type of test produces a JUnit output, not only do we have information about a test target, but we have information about all of the sub-test cases within the target. That's not going to come in phase one. I'd like to think about that a little more carefully, but we know that it's a feature request by many people, so it's not going to be ignored either. But I think this is a fine start to this. And I think the other thing that I may end up also adding to the feature request list would be is, can we get this kind of summary? Is it something we want to also include to quickly throw to if someone is triaging a build pipeline? Is there a way for us to take this kind of summary and put it at the top of that triage issue? But yeah, for now, great progress. This is a great thing you've started working on, Lan, and you wouldn't be able to know you're not a GUI designer. In my mind, it looks nice already. But yeah,
Thank you.
work in progress for sure. I know. All right. Do other people have questions on this particular thing at this time? I know it's early days. It's a work in progress. I believe there's a issue and test tools repo talking about a bit about this already.
Lane, I think I was taking a look after you showed it, I think, in another meeting. This like whole like UI and summary is very impressive. Like Shelly said, like definitely I wouldn't know you're not a UI designer. But coming from more like a Linux on Z test organization, this is something, we use Jenkins a good majority of our teams, and we would love something like this where we could have like an external monitoring. Obviously, we're not doing Java testing or anything like that, but the graphs we were poking, Jordan and I were both poking around at it, and we showed a couple people on our team, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is what we've been wanting," because everyone knows Jenkins isn't the prettiest thing, and also like, yeah.
Yeah, it's an open source tool. I should note, Jim, that you can run your own instance and point it at your Jenkins and just add a parser to whatever you're running. I know actually it's the Node.js team that's also using this to monitor some of their performance benchmarks. So yeah, it's
This is definitely a lot. I like, especially when showing higher ups. This is perfect.
yeah, and as you heard from us before, if we are to support more than just Jenkins in that middle layer of the automation story, then this frees us up from having to do a GUI there and then over here and figure out how it. So yeah, this is going to be critical. I think the other thing to note, I think I've mentioned it to a few people. Right now, we do it by pipeline in Jenkins, but along the side there, we have the menu slightly updated here. There will be a way to eventually to query the database by Java version info. So any runs from any pipeline that were run against the same SDK could be shown in that aggregate view. So I think that will be a very powerful story for us going forward, but it'll take us a while to get that piece as part of it. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Lan.
No problem.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I think the final thing in our agenda was a quick review of, AdoptOpenJDK was at FOSDEM this weekend. It was a crazy, insane time. I'll say, you can hear probably my voice is rather raw. I've been talking. I worked the booth the entire day on Saturday, and just had a lot of great conversations with people. There are a lot of people just stopped by to thank us for the work we do at AdoptOpenJDK. We had a slide up talking about the test effort, and I don't think many people realize just how much we are actually running at the project, and that it essentially boils down to 87 million tests a night if you talk about what different implementations we've tested in the open at the project across all the platforms, across all the versions. When you multiply it out, it's a massive amount of testing, a massive effort. And I do want to thank everyone on this call, because it wouldn't happen if we didn't come together as a community. And you're really the reason why we can tell people that use AdoptOpenJDK binaries that they're assured to, have a high quality binary that they're going to grab and plunk into their environments. And we'll continue to make it better. And now we have these public meetings so we can hear if it's not working out. People can come and tell us. But yeah, that's essentially all I was going to say. I'm going to open it up for any other business. And just like before, I'll update the meeting minutes and share the recording link once I push it to YouTube. Any other business? sounds like no. So I'll close the call now. Really thanks everyone for demoing stuff and the work you're doing. If you, I know there was other work that was happening. I didn't call it out, but I also want people to volunteer to show what they're doing. I think it's wonderful. That way I don't put people on the spot before they're ready. But I see that everyone was fully ready to demo today. So thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.